Any moment at the White House, a highly anticipated face-to-face meeting between President Trump and the King of Jordan comes on the heels of Trump's controversial plan for the U.S. to take over Gaza. Today's meeting follows the warning about Trump, about what he'll do if Jordan does not agree to take in Palestinian refugees. Listen in.
Jordanian leader is coming in to see you.
Yeah.
Folks in Jordan have expressed opposition to taking in more Gazans, more Palestinians. How do you want to convince him to do otherwise?
I think he'll take. I do think he'll take, and I think other countries will take also. They have good hearts. I think they'll take.
Back on Gaza, you talked with Fox News about the billions of dollars we pay for Jordan and Egypt every year. Would you withhold aid to these countries if they don't agree to take in the Palestinians?
Yeah, maybe. Sure. Why not? You mean if they don't agree? If they don't agree, I would conceivably withhold.
Now let's bring in CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed, first off, thank you so much for joining us on the stream today. Let's talk about those comments we just heard from the president. Is that enough to sway the king here?
We'll see. You may have seen that vehicle who pulled up right behind me there. That is the king arriving as we speak. So your timing is impeccable. We will see. This is likely to be one of the most contentious meetings the King of Jordan's ever had with an American president. As there they are, as they head in here by the West Wing entrance, the president coming out to greet King Abdullah and his son, the Crown Prince, who are here for their first meeting of the second Trump administration. The king and increasingly the Crown Prince, no strangers to the White House. They are among the most frequent world leaders to visit an American president, given their geopolitical importance, given the fact that they rely so much on American assistance, both security and financial. This, though, expected to be, as I said, the most contentious meeting the king has had with an American president, at least in a while, maybe since the Iraq War. Given what President Trump has been suggesting in recent days, that perhaps Jordan and Egypt should help relocate the roughly 2 million people who live in the Gaza Strip, clear it out so that it can be redeveloped, and overnight now suggesting that perhaps they would not be able to return. Jordan and Egypt, of course, strongly oppose this idea for a few reasons. First of all, their belief that they are entitled to stay where they are, and that it is land that is settled Palestinian territory and should remain such. But perhaps more urgently to them, the political and economic strain that this would put on both of those countries, that without American assistance or international assistance, they simply couldn't do it, and they've been overwhelmed as it is by strife across the Middle East in recent years, both in the Gaza Strip and in Syria. So we'll see what the king says as he comes out of this meeting, if anything, about how it went with the president. But what the president's also suggesting is the kind of public statement he makes that shocks and awes and may eventually lead to some other kind of resolution. He did this, remember, with the Panama Canal, with the idea of taking Greenland from Denmark. And now these comments, of course, the issue with these comments is they have the potential to really cause more violence and a disruption of the ceasefire agreement, given what he said yesterday as well regarding the possibility that if Hamas doesn't release the rest of its hostages by noon on Saturday, then, quote, all hell might break loose.
Yeah, some very strong words from the president there, but we'll wait and see what comes out of the meeting today with the King of Jordan. And Ed, the president did not hold back while answering questions from reporters just yesterday. So let's listen to what else he had to say about hostages in Gaza.
Well, I would say this, and I'm going to let that be because that's Israel's decision. But as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2.
Ed, what has been the response from Israel on what we just heard from the president there? Because clearly you have family members still waiting for their loved ones to come home.
Most immediately, we've seen Israeli defense forces begin to mobilize for the possibility of more chaos and violence across the region. They've canceled leave and they've called back troops. The Israeli Security Cabinet was to be meeting this afternoon to come up with some kind of a response to this, so we're waiting to see what exactly the Israeli government makes of it. But what the president may be suggesting here or foreshadowing is that this carefully negotiated ceasefire agreement that his team was involved in during the transition may be on the verge of collapse unless Israel and Hamas can come to some kind of an agreement to continue the release of hostages. Remember, the comments come from the president after the Israeli public and much of the world has been shocked by the appearance of 3 Israeli hostages who came out appearing to be physically quite affected by what had gone on over their 400-plus days of captivity and the violence they say that they endured while in captivity. And so there's concern about continuing to prolong the inevitable release of these hostages, and instead the president suggesting that perhaps why can't it be done much faster. That he's raising doubts about it, though, follows up on some comments that were made by his Mideast negotiator last week, suggesting that they'd inherited a deal that wasn't entirely of their making. So we very well could be on the verge of violence breaking out again unless we see some kind of attempt by the Israeli government, as the president suggested there, to figure out with Hamas what to do next.
Okay, Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much for joining us on the stream today. Appreciate your time.